During the Masonic Congress held at Milan in 1881, the following resolutions were adopted. 1. Measures are to be taken to counteract the work of the institutions known as Rufus Pies charitable works, which were founded by clericalism to corrupt the people under the misnomer of charity. The morals of the country thus endangers need reforming as well as the laws. 2. Women are henceforth to be eligible for Freemasonry, and feminine lodges are to be founded as soon as possible. 3. It is deemed necessary by the Congress to establish workmen's lodges in the city as well as in the country. These lodges to be free except for a nominal fee to cover unavoidable expenses. 4. It is decided to institute a corps of secret Masonic messengers whose mission is to transmit to all lodges the orders and instructions of the chief. These messengers are to be chosen from among Masons having no personal encumbrances and whose devotion to the order has been long standing. They are to be registered at no particular lodge, deriving their powers directly from the central authority of Italian Masonry. A corps of brother propagandists, this is 5. A corps of brother propagandists, themselves unknown as Masons, is to be created. They are to travel from town to town as peddlers and merchants of all kinds, spreading everywhere, notably among the rural populations, opinions favorable to Masonry. In the course of their peregrinations, they are to abstain from visiting local Masonic lodges and are to be known as traveling brothers. 6. Should the order wish to initiate a personage of very high social rank, or one who, in the opinion of the Grand Master, should happen to be in a position demanding the strictest secrecy, his initiation need to be known only to the Assistant Grand Master or the Grand Secretary and the Grand Treasurer. 7. The Congress declares the solution of the social questions and the winning for the legitimate workers of their rights to be its chief concern. The lodges are authorized to hold debates on the most practical means of obtaining governmental support for all measures tending to abolish pauperism and the improvement of the lot of the working classes. This, the 7th resolution of the Congress, to be made public. 8. The liberal forces of Italy are to be secretly organized, and the lodges are to act in such a way as to gain for Freemasonry a majority of the national representation in Parliament. The Congress adopts for Italy the rule passed by the Grand Orient of France in 1848 under the title Messianic Rules to be followed with regard to elections. 9. The Congress declares the chief object of the efforts of Italian Freemasonry to be, for the present, to obtain from the government: A. The regulation of the ecclesiastical patrimony, the property of which belongs to the state and the administration of which belongs to the civil powers. B. The strenuous application of all existing laws guaranteeing to the civil society its independence with regard to clerical influence. C. The enforcement of existing laws by virtue of which religious congregations are to be suppressed, and the suggestion of measures calculated to prevent these laws from being evaded. D. The promulgation of the law relating to the property of religious bodies, confiscation. E. The suppression of all religious instruction in the schools. J. The creation of schools for young girls where the pupils can be protected from any kind of clerical influence. 10. Finally, the Congress decided to create a Masonic initiative. Finally, the Congress decided to create a Messianic initiative, one great politically nonpartisan, anti-clerical party whose object would be to fight and destroy clericalism by any means and all means. Adriano Lemmy promptly obeyed Pike's orders and the resolutions of the Congress, which he himself had dictated by establishing in Rome on July 13, 1881, 10 anti-clerical auxiliary lodges, the foundation expenses of which were paid by the Supreme Directory of Rome. By his order, similar lodges were founded in almost every important town of the peninsula. Lemmy, as a Satanist, and he Lemmy is a Satanist, and he organized the anti-clerical movement as a Satanist. Besides his effort to destroy the church, he led a movement to spread the nature cult, well knowing that the secret protection of his sect would always be afforded him in the event of that of the anti-Catholic government of Italy being withdrawn. This sect does not as yet dare to reveal its supreme aim, as, says the chief, the world is not yet ready to receive enlightenment by the true light. So, Lemmy first preached Lucifer and then fought Christianity by combating the idea of the supernatural. All his discourses and manifests were composed either by Ulci Bacchi, an atheist, or Umberto Dal Medico, a Luciferian. His instructions to the Italian anti-clericals were also put into operation by the Freemasons of other countries, for the supreme object of the sect is the suppression by a terrible social upheaval of the religion of God and its substitution by that of Satan, known to the dupes of Masonry as the great architect of the universe. On November 21st, 1888, Lemmy wrote Pike a letter appealing for help in his fight against the Vatican. The letter closed with the following paragraph. Help us in our struggle against the Vatican, thou whose authority is supreme, and under thy impulse all the lodges of Europe and America will rally to our cause. Pike needed little urging and immediately fell in with Lemmy's plans. On March 30th, 1889, the Mother Lodge Archimede took the initiative in an effort to shake off Lemmy's tyrannical yoke by announcing the formation of the Masonic Federation of the Independent Lodges of Italy. Lemmy was much perturbed by this effort and secession, which he finally succeeded in crushing by use of the power of gold. After the Federation had called a second Congress, he sent one of his secret agents to Palmero with 10,000 francs to buy off the Scalzi brothers. Discord was thus sown in the ranks of the Federation. Soon, the disintegration was complete. The center of Palmer vanished and opposition was crushed. Towards this period, Lemmy got control of the Italian tobacco monopoly, through which he succeeded by swindling methods in acquiring several millions. The whole affair was aired in Parliament, but the intimidated deputies voted to save the reputation of the sect, and in order to suppress the scandal, although Colonel Achille Bazzoni, Deputy Matteo Renato, Imperini Porriro, and several newspapers took up the matter and made a great row, which ended in the usual way when the public gets tired of the subject. As a result of Lemmy's politics in the elections of 1890, no decent, honest, and independent candidate for political position had a chance of being elected against one of his hand-picked nominees. Italian politics became a Freemasonic monopoly, and the people were mercilessly exploited by the dregs of society, backed by Lemmy and his money, much of which was extorted from the Banca Romana. On April 2, 1891, Albert Pike died and was succeeded in the Supreme Grand Lodge of Masons by Albert George Mackey, who held the post for 2 years and 5 months. There were great rivalries between the members of Pike's staff and Albert George Mackey, who Mackey was chosen as a compromise candidate who was unlikely to interfere seriously with any of the others. With neither strength of character, energy, nor activity, he was no match for Lemmy, who aspired to the supreme Masonic power as well as to the handling of the Masonic central funds for the expenditure of a large part of which no account was required by the Supreme Directory at Berlin. The international organization was now a formidable machine composed of 77 triangular provinces, the Archdiocese of High Masonry, and 33rd Lotus Mother Lodges, the founder lodges and generators of Palladism. With Phyllis Walder as accomplice, Lemmy lost no time in starting to undermine the power of Charleston, but to realize this project, it was first necessary to create a movement in the triangular provinces. To this end, he employed his secret political agents of the Executive Directory of Rome, practically all of whom were Jews. These agents were registered in the Central Directory only by a number and a special messianic name, and were unknown even to the Grand Masters of the provincial lodges, as well as to the brothers and sisters at the head of the Lotus Mother Lodge. His particular agent in London in 1893 was supposed to be an old Piccadilly Jew called Daniel Mould. The came under which he was registered for this triangular province. In the Grand Central Directory at Naples was Adam Cadsmone, the magical value of the letters of which, when added, give the total of 244, exactly as do the letters of his real name. Lemmy was not forced to rely solely upon his special agents, for he also had the unanimous support of the powerful secret Jewish lodges. By the decree of September 12, 1874, which confirmed a treaty signed by Armand Levy for the Jewish B'nai B'rith, Brothers of the Alliance, of America, Germany, and England, and the supreme authority of Charleston, Albert Pike authorized the Jewish Freemasons to form a secret federation functioning side by side with the ordinary lodges. This secret society was to bear the title of Sovereign Patriarchal Council, and its universal center was to be at Hamburg, Valentenskamp Strasse. In subscriptions alone, it collected 1,400,000 francs a year, which were used for general Jewish propaganda. Under the terms, damn it, that word. I can't get this in the right spot. Or does it go like that? Under the terms of this document given in full on page 255 of Andrea Lemmy by the Demarjota, Jewish Masonry Jewish Masonry, unlike Gentile Masonry, was not to be graded. Its members were exempt from belonging to any other official rite, and the secret of its existence was to be most strictly kept by those members of High Masonry who had been informed by the Supreme Dogmatic Directory of its existence. The later clause in the agreement is undoubtedly responsible for the equivocal attitude of all High Masons with regard to the past and present national and international secret political activities of the Rith. In the interests of humanity, the conspiracy of secrecy should be revealed, for the control of the international balance of power and the possibilities of the international spy system thus established are a menace to the welfare and peace of the peoples of the world. A Jew of French descent, this Armand Levy, above referred to, had attached himself to the Napoleons at the early time and was employed by them in various ways. As a member of the International, he represented the possibilities of an imperial socialism, and when the barricades were built, his name was in the commune and his voice was raised for the extremist councils. He it was who rose in the Hotel de Ville to ask that all the deputies of Paris should be summoned from Versailles, and if they would not come, should be deposed, convicted, and condemned to death. It was indeed in the heart of the Jewish lodges that the plans to manufacture the public opinion necessary to the success of Lemmy's ambitious project were made, and what actually happened was the result of a plot of the Sovereign Patriarchal Council of Hamburg against the Supreme Dogmatic Directory of Charleston. Hamburg won in the end, and the secret Jewish control of the powerful machine of international masonry was assured. The Jewish lodges were Lemmy's willing tools, and 50,000 Masons simultaneously Paladists and members of the Hamburg Federation, under orders given by the Jewish agents in the pay of the chief of political action, made over a period of 3 months in the triangles of secret Jewish lodges. A splendid propaganda calculated to induce discussion and approval of the transfer of the Supreme Dogmatic Directory of Charleston to Rome. Everywhere, by every means, the agents of Lemmy worked what is that word? I want to say it right. I think it's indefatigably. I can't say it. To create a demand for the removal of the headquarters of the order from Charleston to Rome, on the pretext that the power of the Vatican could be better fought at close quarters. These reclamations of a noisy minority were then magnified for the benefit of the Grand Council of Masons at Charleston to a threat of imminent recession, and after much maneuvering, Phyllis Walder succeeded in inducing George Mackey and the American Masons to sign the decree convening the Sovereign Convention. Walder, having remarked that Lemmy was not to be a candidate for the Supreme Grand Mastership in case of the passage of a vote of transfer, of which he maintained there was no danger, seeing that the majority of the triangles favored Charleston as the seat of high masonry, the American Masons, overconfident of the outcome of the convention, overlooked the importance of the choice of the town in which it was to meet. On May 20th, 1893, after all the delegates had been elected, Lemmy suddenly launched his decree of chief organizer, appointing Rome as the convention city. Had everything been straight, Charleston would have come out of the trial of the secret convention with a majority of 52 votes, for only 25 provinces favored the move to Rome, but to Lemmy, all ways, including bribery and crime, were good. On the eve of the opening of the convention, 14 of the delegates favoring Charleston were suddenly taken ill, and elections for substitute delegates were held in 5 of the Grand Triangles, but in the remaining 9, the provincial Grand Masters, owing to lack of time or some other reason, referred the matter by telegram to Charleston. George Mackey answered, "Send Bovio proxy to provide a European substitute." It was suicide. Bovio, Grand Master General of the Grand Central Directory of Naples, and his lieutenants were entirely devoted to Lemmy, in whom George Mackey continued blindly to confide. The 9 sudden illnesses of the American delegates, the only ones he knew of, had failed to open his eyes, and he continued counting 52 votes against the transfer. Apart from 2 or 3 American delegates, all those who landed in England in August and were entertained by the Mother Lodge of the Lotus of England in the secret temple at 32 Oxford Street, Frascati's, were oblivious of the imminent crisis. When the Grand Central Directory of Naples received these proxies, 9 Italian delegates were named to represent Cleveland, Memphis, Guatemala, Havana, Caracas, Lima, La Paz, Treinta y Tres, and Port Louis, one of whom abstained from voting while the rest cynically voted against the wishes of the province they represented. Okay. The count of the ballots gave the following result out of 77 delegates. 48 delegates for the transfer to Rome, 25 delegates against the transfer to Rome, 4 delegates not voting the transfer to Rome. After this essentially fraudulent transfer of the real Masonic power from Charleston to Rome, the rest was easy. The 10 Masons of Charleston retained their empty titles in an honorary capacity, while Lemmy, now self-styled sovereign pontiff, named 10 other active Masons, but owing to the difficulties attendant on the meetings of these widely dispersed magnates, he created a Supreme Triangle with 2 assistants, Carducci and Ferrari, the members of which were... There's a lot of names. I don't know if I should go through all these because I can't even pronounce half of them, but I guess I've gone this far. I'll try. The members of which were Patriarch Emeritus Mason, Germany, Fendel, at Leipzig; Patriarch Emeritus Mason of India, Hobbes, at Calcutta; Patriarch Emeritus Mason, Hungary, Antal de Barricas, at Budapest; Patriarch Emeritus Mason, Austria, W.J. Clark, at Melbourne; Patriarch Emeritus Mason, England, David Sandman. I mean, it's got this stuff, DIN-476 at London. I don't know what that means, but I'll start reading it too. Patriarch Emeritus Mason, France, Follette, Jesus, Tippereth-1255 at Paris; Patriarch Emeritus Mason, Egypt, Gerasimos Pogo, Netska-1165 at Alexandria; Patriarch Emeritus Mason, Spain, Miguel Morata, Hod-816 at Madrid; Patriarch Emeritus Mason, Chile, B. Almanos Gonzalez, Essad-1152 at Valparaiso; Patriarch Emeritus Mason, Belgium, Goblet de la Villa, Malkuth-697. International Masonry under Lemmy became satanic and Jewish. International Jewry has much to explain. Lemmy died in 1896 and was succeeded by Ernesto Nathan, an English Jew, who, in view of the intimacy which had existed between his mother, Sarah Nathan, and Mazzini, who said to have been the latter's natural son, Lemmy left a son called Silvano Lemmy. In 1895, a charismatic Masonic group calling itself the Grand Orient of Italy was founded on March 5, 1899. It held a meeting at which it adopted a constitution of its own, after which Lemmy's Grand Orient and the new one settled down to a state of secret civil war. Secrecy was imperative, for prior to 1895, the row between the various Masonic factions had become so acute with the profane public that the profane public had begun to get seriously interested in the political Masonic affairs of the contending factions. The outcome of this dispute was the exposures made in the following books. Oh man, they're all in French. Memoirs d'un ex-paladiste and Le 33rd Crispy by Diana Vaughan. Le paludisme et y a-t-il des familles dans la Franca-Macaroni by Leo Taxel. Adrio Lemmy by Domenico Margiotta. Le Début à ex Sickle by Dr. Batil. La femme et l'enfant dans la Franc-Macaroni and La Franc-Macaroni Universelle by A. Delarive. La Amenie Sociale by Paul Rosen. Satan et Si by Paul Rosen. To inaugurate a policy of suppression, these revelations were shown to have been a hoax, a mystification. The maneuver was successful. On the 19th of April, 1897, the author, writing under the pseudonym of Diana Vaughan, mysteriously disappeared, and Leo Taxel publicly repudiated his own allegations against Freemasonry. Once again, the public heard, believed, and forgot what happened to paludism, the super rite. At the foot of page 76 of Mrs. Nesta Webster's Secret Societies, we find the following note. Thus Hastings' Encyclopedia of Religion and Ethics omits all reference to Satanism before 1880 and observes, the evidence of the existence of either Satanists or Paladists consists entirely of the writings of a group of men in Paris. It then proceeds to devote 5 columns out of the 6.5 which compose the article to describing the works of 2 notorious romancers, Leo Taxel and Bataille. There is not a word of real information to be found there. Indeed, we owe Mrs. Webster a debt of gratitude for thus drawing our attention to this curious effort in an otherwise presumably reliable work to eliminate certain phrases of religious history. Those phrases are the personal histories of Albert Pike, the great Freemason, and Giuseppe Mazzini, the great revolutionist. Hold on. I'm not reading the footnotes. You really should buy this book. There's a lot of shit that there's a lot of shit in this. The great revolutionist. The photostats and documents here appended show the reorganization of the super right under the general name of Illuminism, linked, as we know, with Societas Rosicrucianus in Angla. Patents of the ancient order of Oriental Templars, then in its embryonic stages, 1902, are also shown. In 1917, this organization unobtrusively declared itself the Super Right. The history of the ancient order of Oriental Templars is given a subsequent page.